Welcome back to another episode of Project 78. Today we're going to be working on the brake system. We've got all new components for the brakes, brake booster, master cylinder, right down to the proportioning valve. So what I'm going to do is break this into two parts. I'm going to go to the wheels on the second part and do all of the calipers. We're going to upgrade the rear brakes from drum to disc. So that's going to be a fun project. But for right now, we're doing the brake booster and the master cylinder. We're going to replace all the lines. It all started when I feel like we're experiencing a vacuum loss at the brake booster. It's making some weird noises when you get on the throttle, and I'm really suspecting that we've got a leaking diaphragm in there or something. Something's gone bad. The seals have gone bad. So that's what kind of sparked this whole thing. So I said, well, if we're going to be doing the booster, we might as well do the master cylinder. Then I was like, well, if we're going to go that far, might as well replace the lines. We're going to break into it. So let's just redo everything. Again, we've owned this car for 30 years, and I don't think really anything's been done to these brakes other than normal maintenance. So let's get started. All right, this is where we're going to start. Brake booster has got to come off the firewall. I know there's 4 studs that go through the firewall. I've watched some videos on this. It definitely looks like a pain. You got to get up underneath the dash, underneath the steering wheel. There's 4 bolts on 4 studs that hold the booster in. Detach the master cylinder from the booster. All these lines are going to come off and be replaced. So this is where we're going to get started. Yeah, another thing I wanted to mention too is this brake booster is, as far as we know, it's original to the car. So when you're talking 45 years that this thing's been on the car, so I really don't want to trust it anymore with this brake system. I definitely want to just change this out for peace of mind, even if there isn't anything wrong with it. It's 45 years old. I'm going to try and pop this cover off the reservoir here. And we've got gasket, seal. Yeah, brake fluid doesn't look too bad. Looks a little dark on the back side. So right here, this is a filter. I did get a new one of these. Again, I believe that's original to the car. This is your check valve. I'm not sure how easily this vacuum line is going to come off here. Might have to cut it. There we go. All right, good. Detach the master cylinder from the booster, 9/16. Okay. So I'm going to leave the lines connected for now. This master cylinder, I'm going to break into those lines after. There's the pin. So, important thing to note, on these boosters, there's a pin in there that pushes on the end of your master cylinder. These come in different lengths. I'm not sure, always check your new booster. If you do get a new booster, make sure it's the same length. If not, just reuse the old one. Okay, I'm gonna do the best I can here to show you underneath, inside the dash here behind the steering wheel. You can see there's the two right side there, the 2 bolts, and there's 2 on the left side. You can just barely see those up there. And on the pedal itself, on the brake pedal, oh man, too many wires. I'm hoping I can zoom in on that. Right there, there's a pin. There's a pin there that goes from the booster and it ties it into the pedal itself. There's a little clip on there. And I'm out of focus again, doing the best I can here. There's a little clip on there that you pull, and then the pin comes out. So we're gonna work on getting these bolts out and pull the pin, and we're gonna pull this booster out. Well, I don't think that's gonna work. I think these nuts, they're pinch nuts. And they're going to be tight coming off all the way, so that air ratchet is a bust. All right, this is definitely tight under here. What I'm going to do to help myself out here, I'm going to take this panel off underneath the steering column. There's some ductwork behind here, and once I take this panel off, it should free up some more space to be able to see better. All right, much better. So now with that panel off, I can get a straighter shot. Definitely still need a universal though. Get up in there. Almost there, kids. All right, all 4 nuts are out. Now I just got to work on that pin. All right, brake booster is out. It was a little bit of a pain to get the pin off the pedal. I know going back in, putting a new one in, it's going to be a little bit of a pain in the ass. All right, guys, here's the old booster. This piece here was kind of on here like this. As you can see, it's all dry rot. And inside here, there's like a, I don't know, it's like a foam spongy material. It's all deteriorated in there too. All right, here's the new booster. It did come with a pin, kind of like I talked about earlier. So this pin is just a little bit shorter, the one that came with the new one. So I'm gonna use the old pin just in case. Lined up on the bottom here. There we go. Something's hanging me up in there. Try that. There it is. That's all it needed. That's all. I don't even see the hole.
Oh, that hole that's next to the...
Yeah, I think what it is, there it is. It's spring loaded. All right, got it. Nice. There's a spring washer on the other side, and it keeps pressure on it, so it keeps it nice and tight.
Yeah, it keeps the pins from sliding out.
Yep. All right. Booster's in. Call it a day.
That didn't take 2 hours.
New booster is installed. All right. We did struggle a little bit getting the pin back in on the shaft that goes to the pedal. We struggled with that quite a bit, but we were able to wiggle it in there. We got it done. So I bolted everything back up and put the master cylinder back on. We're going to take this out for a drive. I want to see if this fixes our vacuum problem. Because we're getting that, like, it's a swishing noise, and I wanted to say it was coming through that booster. So we're going to test drive this and see if that fixes our problem before we tear apart the brake lines. All right, we took the car out for a drive, and I'm going to tell you what, the pedal feels so much better already just by replacing the booster. I pulled the top off of the reservoir, I'm gonna suck this fluid out with this little bulb, makeshift bulb thing that I got to try and reduce some of the mess when I unscrew these lines. All right, we're gonna get these lines broke off. These are 9/16. Nice. Hardly any fluid came out. All right. We're officially broke into the lines. Here we go. Ah, there is no going back. Master cylinder is coming back off. All right, so I got a side-by-side comparison of the old master cylinder versus the new one. This is an AC Delco part. It does look like there's a bit of a redesign. If you look at the body of the master cylinder itself, you can see there's little humps down here. Note the size of the areas that come down from the reservoir. They're a little bit different. All right, guys, so we got the car jacked up, and we're looking at the lines under here. You can see the proportioning valve. What they did, it's buried. I don't know if you can see that. It's right. It starts right there. That's where the rear comes out, and that's the rear brake line here. And what they did is they bolted this shift linkage through the proportioning valve. So all that shift linkage has got to come off. But you can see the shape of these lines under here. They're definitely rusted. These have been here for a while. And also, there is, if you look at this guy here, that's a compression coupling, and that is on the brake line. So that's going to come out of there, obviously. It's part of the reason why we're redoing the brakes. I knew that was here. It's been there for years. So all that's going to come out. There's another brake line that runs across the front support underneath the engine and hits the passenger side wheel. And again, if you can see that, there's a compression coupling there as well. So all that's going to come out. These are all going to be redone, brand new lines. Okay, shift linkage has been removed, so you're going to see a lot better here. If you look up in there, obviously this is your proportioning valve, and that is obviously original. So that's going to come out. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to clip all these lines, because right now the two bolts are out. You can see where the two bolts were. Those two bolts held on the bracket that held on the shift linkage, because this car has the column shift, so it has the linkage coming down in front of the firewall. So as you can see, the valve itself is loose. I don't know if you can see that, but it's completely disconnected from the frame. So I'm going to clip these lines and get this proportioning valve taken out. All right, proportioning valve is out. So obviously that's the original one that was in the car. Clipped all the lines. That's why they're still there. I didn't want to have to get a wrench up in there and take all these fittings out. I think it would have been nearly impossible with everything being in there for over 40 years. So here's your new one. So you get important thing to note on this guy is I ordered a disc front and rear on this proportioning valve. This is a disc drum that came stock with the car. So as you can see, all the holes, everything lines up. These top two here, these are from your master cylinder, front and rear. This is your rear going to the rear set. This is your front driver side, and this one down here is your front passenger side. So all the holes line up here on this guy and the new one. So we're going to reverse everything here and start getting things cleaned up and reinstalled. All right, I was able to get the main brake line from the proportioning valve to the rear. Finally pulled out. I got all the clamps out. Hardware is all cleaned up. And I unboxed all of the new brake lines. This is a full kit. This has all the front lines and rear lines. The two axle lines in the rear. The two coming down from the master cylinder, two fronts. And obviously your main one going back to the rear, which I think is going to be a real pain to get in. So we're going to do our best here and see what we can do to get this installed. Here we go. Center line is in. The one that goes from the proportioning valve from the rear all the way back to the rear wheels. This guy here, that's your flex hose that goes down to your axle. So the line comes up above the frame. We did struggle a little bit trying to get in between the frame here. As you can see, it's kind of tight. I was able to get a couple clamps on it. The factory clamps, looks pretty good. And it rides the rail all the way up to the front where the proportioning valve is. We had to jack up the cross member in order to get the brake line on the other side of it. So I had to unbolt that. But it's there, it's in, and without any damage. So we're gonna be in good shape. We're gonna continue on these lines. All right, proportioning valve is installed, we got it. So the lines coming out of the top, we have that. Most of these are just hand tight, except for the rear one and the one going over to the, coming out of the bottom of the proportioning valve. That's the one that goes over to the passenger side front, and that one's all set. So no more splice, that's good. And the pre-fitted, pre-bent lines, they worked out better than expected. So there's where the proportioning valve sits. I cleaned it up, put some paint on there. So that's going to be where she sits. So everything's hand tight with the exception of the one coming out of the back. I did tighten that one down because I had to really torque that down to the bolts holding that proportioning valve to the frame. I had to keep that loose in order to get the rear one in and threaded properly. So on this proportioning valve, these are just kind of hand tight, these two bolts that hold the proportioning valve to the frame. This is where that shift linkage mounts, that plate mounts back up to this. So these bolts got to come back out, and that shift plate's got to mount back up. So I think I'm going to keep that off because I do have the brake bleeder up in here, and it's going to be easier to access this and bleed the brakes without that shift linkage there. So I'm going to leave that off for a while. Probably wait until I get the brake system all completed, put the discs on, and seal everything up and bleed everything out. Then I'll probably end up getting the shift linkage put back on. And here's our line set coming out of the top, going back to the master cylinder. These had to hand bend a little bit to tweak them and get them kind of where they needed to be. But they're in. Master cylinder is bolted in. That's going to have to come back off because we're going to bleed it. We're going to bench bleed that before that goes back on. Okay, we also have a rear flex hose installed. That goes to the axle, the rear axle, feeds the lines that go to the rear brakes. I'm not going to connect these yet because I'm not sure what type of modifications we're going to have to make for the new disc brakes. Because the old setup, obviously they thread, you can't see from here, maybe you can up there, just up there you can see they go into the back of the cylinders, back of the brake cylinders. So on the new disc setup, I'm not sure how that end is going to meet up. So I'm not going to do anything with these yet until I see what that setup is. Okay, and here is the driver's side wheel. Obviously right here, your new brake line. This is just hand threaded again into the flex hose, which goes to your caliper. Again, not sure of the new setup with the new disc brakes. So I'm going to leave that just loose until I figure out what kit I need to install the new disc brakes on this. And this is the one on the passenger side, pretty much the same setup. All right, guys, so this is pretty much it. I got a couple bolts left here to go in the cross member, the transmission mount. I took those out to slide the one of the brake lines in along the frame rail, so I had to take those out. So those gotta go back in, and I have one more mount here, bracket for one of the brake lines up front, so that's just gotta get installed. This is for your the brake light that goes in the top of the proportioning valve once the brakes are bled. So we're pretty much going to wrap this one up. The car is going to stay up here on jacks for a while. I'm going to get a parts order in. I got to order all of the disc brakes components. I got to figure out what goes with what. So there's a little bit of research here that needs to be done before I continue on with this project. So again, we're going to end this video. We're going to break this one up. The next video is going to be the install of the disc brakes, front and rear. So that one should be fun. Better than, I think it's going to be more fun than installing these lines. So thanks, guys. Like and subscribe if you like this content. Love to see you come back. And we're going to get these disc brakes installed and upgrade this braking system.